Hello, welcome. Good morning, everyone. I'm Denise Barbosa, and we are here again today for a new McKinsey Talks. McKinsey Talks has already established itself as a space for most relevant and latest topics with the world's leading experts. As the pandemic evolves, we will discuss today the topic leadership in a crisis, how to overcome pandemic fatigue and re-energize organizations for the long run. Today, we are welcoming Mike Carson, partner at McKinsey in London, founder of Aberkyn and former officer at Britain Royal Navy. During his 12-year naval career as an operations officer, Mike developed and studied leadership closely and served in war zones in many occasions. Mike is also the author of the bestseller, The Manager Inside the Minds of Football's Leaders. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Denise.
We also have here today Rami Goldfajn, senior partner at McKinsey in São Paulo and leader of the People, Organization and Performance Practice in Latam. Good morning, Rami.
Good morning.
And Fernanda Mayol, partner at McKinsey, leader of People, Organization and Performance Practice in Brazil and leader of Rio de Janeiro office. Good morning, Fernanda.
Good morning, Denise.
Please note that you at home will be able to ask questions through the session by clicking the button on the left of the video window. Please contribute. Your participation is essential. Let's get started. Fernanda?
So thank you so much, Denise. And good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And I want to start this introduction with a quote. A quote that says that life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It is about learning how to dance in the rain. Looking at the pandemic and how it evolved over time, at the beginning of the crisis in Brazil, we actually saw many heroes. No? We saw leaders that really made the organization thrive. No? The level of productivity, the level of engagement, the speed in the decision-making, all of this was really incredible, no, unbelievable what we did. But then the time passed and the pandemic evolved in a more challenging direction, new waves, new variants. And although the world started to get vaccinated, the advancement of the vaccination in Brazil and in some countries in Latam were well below our expectations. So of course, the leaders and the workforce start to get tired, start to feel exhausted. The vaccine gives us hope, but it doesn't change the fact that lots of people are struggling. No? We have 74% of Brazilians that know someone in their work that resigned, that left the work because of the pandemic. No, the number of individuals who rate mental health issues or who mention mental health issues is 3 times higher than before the pandemic. And 70% of the US workforce report any type of symptoms related to burnout. So in this context, the question is, how can leaders overcome this situation? And we look for answer by observe individuals in really extreme situations, such as severe illness. No? And we saw that actually there are 3 groups of reactions. The first group are the individuals that engage with the past. No, they just consider their life before the disease. So they create a kind of a restitution narrative. We have a second group, that is the group of individuals that cannot imagine the future. They stick to the present. They only exist in the present. And they create a kind of a more chaotic narrative. And then there is a third group. That is a group of individuals that embrace the quest, no, and make this part of their identity, their journey. And those are the ones that has higher chances of winning the battle against the disease. So leaders can transpose this to their organization, and can do this by doing 5 things. Number 1 is provide this bounded optimism. What I mean, the leaders, they should inspire, they should engage, they should talk about a bright future, but it must be done, it must be tempered with reality. This balance between future reality, it's very important. Second one, and number 2, is listen. Listen, listen, and listen. We would love to come here and show in one page a beautiful plan to re-engage the organizations. But the reality is that it doesn't exist. No? So this plan needs to be built, and leaders need to be very adaptive. It needs to be very creative to deal with that and to create plans for their own organization, for their own people. And to do this, they must listen the organization, listen to the people continuously. Number 3 is actually a good news, no? Is that adaptability and resilience are skills that can be learned. So leaders must invest to teach them, must invest to train the organization, and to do this at scale. Number 4 is promote well-being. But when we say that, is promote well-being for real. It's not only talking about the importance of taking a break or doing exercise. It's really about being a role model. It's really about creating the conditions for the organization to do this. No, is create an agenda for that. Is create the rules or the conditions to enable that for real. And then the last one, the number 5, take us back to the beginning of this short introduction, and it's actually an invitation for the leaders. No, is we see this challenge as an opportunity to reinvent the organization, to rethink the organization, to reshape the organization for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fernanda. Very, very interesting. Mike, COVID-19 led to unprecedented crisis in the globalized world. In your opinion, how this crisis differs from previous crises?
It seems to be on a whole different order of magnitude. Even if you look at crises such as war, right? And even going back to the Second World War, for example, which was pretty much a global experience. With this one, things were shifting all the time, largely because of interconnectedness, global interconnectedness, and because of social media, broadcast media, the ability to connect, which has been so helpful in ways like this. Even so, every single person, it seemed, was touched, right? So every single person on the planet, pretty much, and I think that has been hard for almost everyone to handle, particularly senior leaders. It's like, how long will this last? And every day, different opinions come out, and we're like forced to reshape and rethink almost every waking moment. That is exhausting, and it's been for that reason, I think, a difficult and different time.
And Mike, leaders have never had to deal with so many issues at the same time: an unprecedented crisis, a growing importance of the ESG topics, a growing number of employees facing mental health issues, among others. From where should leaders experiencing so many challenges start?
Well, it is always my advice to leaders to go with the airline principle or the aircraft principle of put on your own oxygen mask first, right? It seems selfish at the time. Right, you know how in aircraft they say before you help your neighbor, and normally there's a child in the video next to you. Before you help even your own child, put on your own oxygen mask. You're going to be of no help unless you yourself are in a good place, or in a stable place at least. So there's something about first make sure that I have, and we could talk more later about resilience, sustainability. I'm okay, I'm stable, so that then I can help from there. It actually, it applies not in a crisis as well. It comes from the Socrates principle of, before I can govern the people, I must first know myself, right? So in leadership in any forum, in any eventuality, before I can lead others, I must first lead myself. But then the second thing, which is becoming, I think, very evident, at least to me in so many ways, is what paradigm leaders come from. And there are two starkly opposite paradigms here. Do you come from love, or do you come from fear in terms of your reactions and your actions? So simply put, love, I do the right thing. Fear, I do things to look good, right? And so a fear-based response might come out of guilt, for example, or might come out of blame, or might come out of insecurity. I fear I'll lose my job. I'll lose my standing. I fear whatever it is. And although the actions may look the same and the intentions may look the same, actually people can detect when you're coming from love, which is about them, and about growth and flourishing, or when you're coming from fear, which is normally about you. It's the difference between the soul, which is love, and the ego, which is fear. So that is the biggest thing, I think. By the way, one example, you mentioned, I think, Fernanda, you mentioned mental health issues. Mental health. Do I come at mental health from out of fear? I mustn't have people with mental health issues in my organization, or I must be seen to be sympathetic, or what that produces one set of responses, versus I'm going to take some real action because mental health is a problem in this current environment. So what actions am I going to take? I'm going to give people more downtime. We're going to get to a more balanced lifestyle. I'm going to nurture the family, whatever it is, right? That I can take action, that will come out of love.
Sure. Rami, COVID-19 has impacted organizational levels, C-level directors, managers, and profile, commercial, technical, and others, in different ways. What is the role of leaders in addressing and supporting the different challenges faced by their employees?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, we need to first recognize that there is a different impact by different groups. So for example, that we see that young professionals are feeling isolated and depressed, right? But we also see, not all of them, but just there's a group of people that are not happy with what's going on. But also there's a group of people with families that are happy to be more at home and close to their families. So we need to take that into account. So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, and leaders need to recognize that. They need also to think how to inspire and aspire. So let's start with aspire. So first of all, defining a high aspiration for the organization. Think bigger and think of a purpose as well that will connect to everybody. And then how to bring that aspiration of where the company is going and what is the purpose of the organization to these people, and have a narrative that really connects with them, right? And always bounded with optimism, right? And finally, they need to remember that they are role models. So everybody in the organization is looking to their behavior, is looking to what they do, what they say, and want to see somebody that they can trust and they admire as well, and that represents the aspirations and inspirations that they want. So they need to be as well. They need to be present. They need to be close to their people, and show, one important thing is show the humanity. Now we're in a time very important to show their humanity, show that they are close, that they're accessible, right? And also help other leaders in the organization do the same, so you leverage the organization. And using the words that Mike just brought, that were very, very, very interesting, is really help people overcome their fear, but also bring love to them.
Very good, very nice. And Mike, many leaders we talk with say that their people, especially their top talent, are working more hours. They are taking fewer breaks. Their teams are outright exhausted.
Right.
What's the solution when leaders are clearly exhausted, but resist taking a break?
Yes, this is a dangerous thing, Lisa, and it's well known. We used to see it in the military. When I was in the military, captains of warships, admirals, would deliberately take time out and time off and it's really impressive, actually, and they for two reasons. It's back to the oxygen mask again. One is about themselves and what they can contribute, and the other is giving permission to others. So it is a well-known fact that with tiredness and then over time exhaustion, our effectiveness diminishes. Rami mentioned optimism recently, and Fernanda too. We become less optimistic fundamentally. There's a danger that we start to see the world through an obscure lens. We start to make illogical, irrational decisions. We lose our balance by being tired and exhausted. Strangely, none of us, though we think we are, none of us is Wonder Woman or Superman, right? And even they had their kryptonite, right? So we just aren't. And if we think we are, we actually do everyone a disservice, ourselves, but everyone who's has to deal with the consequences of the decisions we take. So this is really important. Being honest, knowing my own limits, acknowledging my own limits. That also connects, Rami, with bring your humanity, involve vulnerability, because this is really important. No one's going to thank you for pretending you can do it when you can't, right? Let's be real. So there's something about courage for sure. There's something about strength for sure, but there's a time to step back. And that's part of what a leader does, is notice that and sort of know that up front, know my limits. And then the second thing is, in doing that, we give permission to others to do the same. Because in the end, we're role models. As senior leaders, we're role models. And others look to us and they do what we do, not what we say, typically, right? This is well proven. So I can say, hey, take time. But if I'm not doing it myself, they don't do it. And if they're not doing it, their teams don't do it. We all become exhausted. The organization becomes exhausted, crazy. So I used to see, admirals, for example, we would have surge capacity. We have a thing called surge capacity. That means for 24 hours, I can do it. I can charge over. It's the moment I'm going to do it, or 36 or however much, right? And you can go without sleep even, and you can do it. But then you've got to step back and recharge. And I would see admirals, captains at times of high tension, high crisis, depending on the person. Some of them could stay going for quite a while, but then they would just go and they would hand over to their number two, and they would sequence those handovers too. So there was a mix. So the admiral in the headquarters ashore would not be out while the admiral afloat was out and the captain of the aircraft carrier was out. One of those three at all times would be there, but also they would have delegated to extremely impressive, very capable number twos and number threes, of course. So it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And Mike, leaders are experimenting different approaches to re-energize their exhausted workforces and make change to emerge stronger.
Yep.
What practice have you seen to be effective in helping people cope with highly uncertain times?
I've probably got, let me think. I've probably got three things to say. One is around just managing our energy. Managing our energy and building our personal resilience. So that's a little bit, the sleep and time off that we mentioned. If you have a centering practice, a relaxation. It could be a meditation. It could be a prayer practice, something that's regular and gets you in touch with with yourself and frankly with the soul, with God, what your belief. This is really significant because it's deep time. And by the way, it is shown to have medical benefits. Because the frequency at which our mind is operating slows down, and that just gives it's like a car. You can't keep the car 7,000 revs for however long. So peace. The next thing is just building resilience, which is not just about strength to continue, but it's also about options and optionality. Like we said about options of leaders, bring in my number 2, bring in my number 3, bring in other colleagues, do it a different way. Options, resilience is about sustainment over time. So that's sort of one big package. Second big package is around relationships and people and collaboration. Foster great relationships in your organization between you and others, and between others. Encourage human relationships, because when the chips are down, that is what matters. That is what really counts. And I noticed that when we went, this was unforeseen, but when we went into the video world in COVID, the strong relationships were the ones that could most easily survive the video connection. We missed each other, but because we knew each other well, actually, we all said, okay, video is much better than nothing. But it's much harder to create a new relationship or to repair a difficult or broken relationship on video. So, and do that. And then the final point, I would say, is encourage people, encourage one another. The word encourage is super powerful. It means to, the word courage comes from the cœur in French, the heart. So it means to build up one another's heart. It means to, if I encourage you, I'm building up your heart. That is resilience, strength, passion, purpose, operating from purpose. People will talk about this a lot now. They're right to, should have been talking about it for a lot longer. These things are super powerful. Encourage one another. I think in terms of conversation and feedback, the factor should be 10 to 1. We should be encouraging so much more and criticizing so much less.
And Fernanda, how can leaders know when their teams are having problems and feeling exhausted? What interventions can they take?
As we were saying, Denise, I think the first one is really listen. No, you need to listen people to see understand what is going on. No. And they should foster this authentic curiosity, to find and to fix problems. Again, as Michael said, it needs to come from love. It needs to have a lot of empathy. It's important to make a point of being present, even if it's by video, but being there, being connected with the team, talking with them, learning, ask about how they are feeling. So again, it goes very much in line with this whole notion of come from love, listen people, demonstrate and have empathy, and being connected and being curious about how people are feeling.
And Mike, what capabilities do you see as crucial for leaders to support their organizations to navigate through crisis?
I'm sorry, Denise, did you say what capabilities?
Yes.
Capability in the leader.
Yeah, do you see as crucial for leaders?
Yeah, so there are a few. One for me is a little bit building on Fernanda just now. Genuine empathy. Genuine empathy goes a long, long way. So people have a strong empathetic radar. They know if you're pretending, or they know if you're real. So genuine empathy, because that will release the strength of your people. So that's the sort of we call it people leadership, but within that space, a genuine empathy is a huge thing. The next thing I think to lead through certainly in the aftermath of a crisis. So crises tend to be, we call things a crisis, right? Like of course, COVID is a crisis. But there's always a moment with a crisis, like the word initially is like a crossroads, and it's where you take a choice, which direction you're going to go in. Once you've taken that choice and you've gone in a certain direction, a lot of it is management, right? It's about owning the crisis. Actually, it's not management. We call it crisis management, but actually it's leadership. And this is how you lead through the subsequent times. And the capability here, so I would say leadership. What does that mean? In this case, it means the ability to be open to ideas and to bring people with you as you step into the unknown. Because the point is this, we've not been there before. No one's been here before. So you don't have to look good. You don't have to be queen of the castle, king of the castle. You don't have to be the best in the room. You just need to be someone who brings together the best that's available, the thinking, the ideas, the opportunity, and you lead into it in a humble and vulnerable but strong way that says, come with me, let's go together, and let's make the best of this, retaining that optimism that Rami talked about, and we will get there. So there's this sense of prevailing, but no defeatism. There's a sense of optimism without being what I will call Pollyanna, like, of course it'll be all right. And we lead in that way. So it's a hard thing to define, but I would say people, empathy, and leadership, humility, openness.
And Rami, based on your experience of leading several transformations, especially in Brazil and Latin America, where the last decades have gone through several crises, how do you see them navigating more effectively through crisis?
Yeah, so for sure, we had many crises in the region, and Latin leaders have learned to go through those crises. We went through hyperinflation, foreign exchange devaluation, political instability, right? So for sure, leaders in the regions have learned from that process and became more resilient, I would say. It's part of the DNA of LATAM leaders. I'm not saying that globally it doesn't exist. Of course it exists, but it's for sure present in the leadership in LATAM. Saying that, the COVID crisis is something that never imagined, and no one planned for it, right? So it's really what they call the black swan, right? So something really different. Nobody was ready for it, and a different muscle was needed, right? We have observed that the leaders in general in LATAM, but also globally, I'm impressed how fast they acted and how they adapted. Going from a crisis mode, trying to understand what is going on and to stabilize the business, to really start thinking and being aggressive in terms of the opportunity that the crisis have come. And I'm thinking here of new services, new products, right? We have seen unprecedented movement in the last 12 months in terms of creation of new services and products, new startups, mergers and acquisitions, IPOs, and so forth. Right? So we see leaders really adapting in LATAM, but also I would say that globally in general. What is differentiating right now is that the crisis is hitting countries and regions in different ways because of the disease itself, but also how the countries have acted to control it. Right. So we see countries that are on the way of getting out of the crisis, and still others that are in the middle, still in the middle of the crisis with hopes to get out. And that is what is affecting the differences right now.
Sure. So thank you, Mike, Rami, and Fernanda. I'd like to start now the panel with a Q&A sent by our audience. And the first question is for you, Rami. What lessons from other crises did you bring to face the COVID-19 crisis?
As I mentioned, the lesson is first of all for leaders to understand what is going on. Don't panic, right? and think in terms of the phases of recovering from a crisis. So first, understand the crisis, deal with it, stabilize. We have seen unprecedented shortage of raw material, for example, stopping production. We have seen unprecedented closure of retail stores. So how to deal with that, right? And finding solutions fast. So, for example, we have seen e-commerce exploding, right, last year and the last months as well, trying to recover for the fact that retail was closed. So the adaptability was really important. And the last thing, which I think is, as a leader, you need to think of the opportunities as well, right, to overcome and think of new services, new ways to correlate with your client, and new ways of new products. Let's also remember the part of the role of the leader in terms of the people that he leads, and how to really be more closer to them, as we mentioned before, how to show the honesty, the humbleness, the narrative, the role model, the overcoming of the fear, and again, bring love and hope in the relationship, which is very important, as Michael said.
I agree. That's nice. And Mike, is it possible to develop resilience and adaptability? How is the question for you from the audience?
Do you know, that's a great question, because I was just thinking about something I wanted to bring that I hadn't brought, and it's the perfect question. One of the great skills that a leader can have is something that's been on my heart for a long time. It's down to the writings of a man called Ronald Heifetz, who some of you will know, who talked of the principle of adaptive leadership, which we've been touching on. So when everything is shifting, how do you lead in that? And we spoke about that a moment ago. One of the keys to be able to do that, he says, so that's adaptability and all of that stuff, it is to be able to be both on the balcony and in the dance. So it's a good phrase, right? On the balcony and in the dance. And if I can just take 1 minute with you over that, Denise, on the balcony, 30,000 feet, big perspective, I see patterns, right? And I can help people navigate. In the dance, yes, I'm there with you, right? I'm touching it, feeling it, I know what it is. So that's great. But there's another level which says, can I get on my own balcony? Even in the moment, can I get on the balcony of myself and look down at myself and see, how am I doing? Am I stable today? Am I off balance? Am I looking at this fresh? Am I biased? Am I panicking today? Am I fearful? Am I peaceful? Am I coming from a place of love? Am I tired? To go back to a former question, the ability to look at yourself and make adjustments as you go. For those of you who sail, right? It's like, you just change the sail a little bit to cope with the wind. A great leader makes 1,000 course corrections a day. Just, I'm looking at myself in the moment and I'm thinking, a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. That's, for me, one of the great skills. And that brings adaptability and resilience.
Great, Mike. And to wrap up our interview, what final message would you like to send to those who are looking to be re-energized in this challenging context that we still face?
Okay, my message is, you have what it takes. You have what it takes. You'll get through this. There are sunlit uplands. It will pass. It will pass the sunshine. The sun will rise again. Everything will be okay. You have what it takes to get through it.
Thank you so much, Mike, Fernanda, and Rami, for participating today, and to the participants who submitted their questions also. I'd like to thank you all for spending the last 45 minutes with us. And for the full McKinsey agenda, visit mckinseytalks.com. There you can watch the previous episodes, and this episode will be there on Monday. And we also have the audio versions on Spotify. You are all welcome to listen to if you'd like to podcast a little bit. So see you next time and have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.